Hey guys, how's it going? Shmoy, aka Baby Sham 33 here, and wanted to discuss Act 7, um, Book 1, and my initial thoughts on it. You will see here. Originally, I did want 100% all of um, the quests, and you know what? Part my fault. After you know I went in there very, very high spirited at first, but after going through the first quest, I had no will whatsoever to try to go in and 100%. Um, one, just the nine paths is just tedious. Um, just looking at it, first and foremost, is definitely um, it feels overwhelming. Um, but then you start going through it and you start evaluating the nodes. Um, and I would say that probably this lane with the stun vulnerability and arc overload and vigorous assault or armored assault, depending on who you're going up against, it's, you know, I would probably the most difficult fight on that path is the Guillotine 2999. Is a bit of a tricky fight. Um, one with the way her Digisouls work and having to knock her down with a heavy to disengage it. Um, at the same time, her armored up passive is pretty much up all the time. So you have to think maybe a nullified champion. I mean, there's you can think out of the box to get past it, but it's probably the most difficult fight on it. But nevertheless, like I said, you have to play skilled, and you kind of have to really think and kind of work around some things. But every other single node on here, one the attack values are between 17 and 18k. So you make one slip up and you're dead. Um, you have this first lane over here, return to sender and sharpen claws. Chance for defender to purify any incoming poison debuff applied and apply to the poison debuff to the attacker. Um, at the same time, 30% attack over 7 seconds if the poison is purified, prevented by the attacker's immunities. They instead receive passage degeneration. I hate notes like that. But on the flip side, the incoming is you have stun reflection. So you definitely want to fight as though it's stun immune. Um, and then, of course, foresight. So you want to make sure that um, you're on point with your stuns. Um, you know, Same thing. Return to sender, but this one is incinerate. So it kind of flips back and forth. Um, it's like I said, this wasn't terrible either. You just have to play really carefully. But like I said, with the attack values, what they are, it's just insanely difficult because, like I said, you really do have to play at your very best. Um, I think of all of these, the craziest node design. Um, Not this. This is an interesting one because you have Icarus, and then you have buffed up an EMP modification. I think having a Black Widow Clairvoyant here was interesting because when you hit her, she removes your debuffs. The best person I found fighting this one was probably Thing. I saw. Um, I could nuke it down with Captain Marvel movie, but it definitely took a few tries to go at it. Um, but like I said, going through this, I think the worst path whatsoever is right here. You have bleed vulnerability. So while the defender is bleeding, the attack rating is increased by 200% when landing an attack. But then you have do you bleed? The defender takes 100% less damage from any source except bleed. Um, when you combine that with the incoming node of shifting immunities, every 10 seconds the immunity switches, and whatever. So if it's do you bleed, all of those bleeds every 10 seconds fall off. I used Nick Fury for this lane, and it was incredibly slow. I mean, I was just I, it was taking me hundreds of hits to get through because of the immunities kept on shifting, and then I wasn't doing any damage. And when I was doing damage, it felt so minuscule. It's supposed to be like 200% extra attack, but it definitely did not feel like that. This path took me over an hour to complete, and it wasn't even the um, acid wash and the poison vulnerability, because at least then, when they're not under the effects of poison immune, at least you're still doing 90%. And you're still doing 10% damage. It's not much, but still, I was able to get through this path, and most of these fights, for the poison, I could solo. Um, but the do you bleed fights, absolutely horrible, worst design whatsoever. Um, like I said, and when you look at I'll just show briefly. The attack values, um, well, they've been luckily reduced, but this originally was, if you look at my earlier video, I believe his attack value was 17k, 17 or 18k. Um, and so Kabam has been hearing the complaints, and they've been trying to make adjustments. But overall, like I said, it was just some of the absolutely worst designed fights. Between the fights, the defender combinations, and the node combinations. Yeah, none of it was a pleasant time. Um, they've reduced it down, so now it's 10k instead of the the 17k that it was before. But still, that very path and a node combination, just a horrible design altogether. Um, the second one here, where you have um, the Modoc boss. So I looked at the nodes. This power struggle, incoming and strike back, is probably going to be one of the easier paths. Um, when I reviewed all the nodes, you have size matters and particle protector and micro reflector. Um, Not a fun combination of nodes, um, especially when you look at the defenders. If you don't have, um, say, a Namor who, you know, will reflect back the damage, um, because you have the microreflector. When the defender glances an attack, a portion of the damage is reflected back to the attacker. So basically, you want to have either extra large heroes, um, or like a Namor, when going down a path like that. But we've seen that in variant before, so definitely something that isn't terrible. Um, you have staggering beauty here, power draw, nullify, cool, countdown. Um, like I said, I won't go into these in too many details because, as you can see, the nodes and so forth. Rich get richer. 3. Whichever champion has more unique buffs. Whichever champion has more unique buffs gains 12% of a bar of power every second. And then you have polka dot. Combined with polka dot, the attacker gains no power from landing and receiving attacks. Instead, they are granted 12% of a power bar per second, while the defender is suffering from damaging debuff. Um, so you want someone that's doing, damage and debuff, and at the same time has different buffs themselves. Um, it's like I said, the node combinations, um, and then when you start looking, at um, fighting folks that will have a lot of buffs, like you know Venom and Mojo has his own sense, and Silver Surfer. Uh, Angela will have a lot of buffs. It's it's a tedious path, and there's going to be a massive amount of power gain that you need to think about, while most of the normal counters to that wouldn't gain power. So if you're not coming through this path and you don't have like a symbiote supreme or something like that, you know, there's definitely going to be its own troublesome path. Um, Oscillate and backboard with personal space. Um, Not too bad at all, as those are some of the things that we're kind of used to. Then at the same time, I mean, on the hero selection on this um, is somewhat fair. So, um, like I said, after the whole debacle of what um, chapter one of the whole quest one was, they did start making some improvements with regards to some of the power and so forth, because this was released in stages. So at first you could only get into the first quest. There was a big uproar, and they started to reduce some of the attack ratings, and a bit more mindful with regards to the the nodes they had released. Um, so I will say that the second quest did get a lot better. You have pressure gauge, power shield, and aggression. Um, but so overall, the paths did get a little bit better. Um, the saber tooth was very interesting because you have this new node, Mercy. So the defender reduces damage taken from all sources by 90% unless under the effects of Mercy passive. Whenever the attacker avoids a hit with the Dexterity Master, they gain a Mercy passive. Execute a well-timed block will remove the Mercy passive from the attacker and apply it to the defender, where they will fall off one at a time every 1.5 seconds. So that's kind of when you're doing the most of your damage. After you've dexed a few times, you've parried, and now that mercy passive, that mercy effect is on them, and that's when you're really doing most of your damage. However, you combine this with 150% um, um, healing and regeneration abilities, um, and aspect of war. So basically, you have 50 seconds to fight this saber tooth before he goes, before your block proficiency is reduced to 0, and he's pretty much unblockable. I have seen the fight done well with Warlock. Um, if you are really good with Quake, I used Archangel because he will, if you're lucky with the RNG, he will cancel out Aspect of War, and he's going to basically reverse all of that healing anyway. Um, but there's a handful of champions that's really going to do this fight well. This is just one of those fights where the node combination is um, is absolutely ridiculous, to say the least. Like I said, we've seen the 150% recovery. I said it's one thing playing back and forth with the Mercy, but when you combine that with the aspect of war, knowing he's going to get unblockable pretty fast, and you're already doing reduced damage, like I said, if you can't, um, if you can't intercept, um, like crazy, you are going to suffer. So now you have to intercept, and you have to worry about his healing ability. You have to worry about his healing ability. Once he goes unblockable, the only thing you can do is intercept. Either that, or you're gonna die, and just gotta have to pony up with potions and come back in. Um, the Smodok, you have the Chair Larceny, um, the Enhanced Force Field, and the Clapback. Um, he's pretty stacked, but it's not a bad fight. And then depending on which node you leave up, whether you have to deal with freezer burn or biohazard, and no matter what, you're going to be taking out that saber tooth, so the limber is going to come off. So you just have to worry. Well, I'm going to deal with freezer burn, or I'm going to deal with the um, the biohazard, or depending if I clear another path, I'm gonna have to deal with both. Like I said, he's stacked, but it's not terrible. But that saber tooth fight with the no combination, absolutely horrible. And by the third chapter, like I said, they heard from the community, and they've made a lot of sorry about that improvements on the paths. Um, with regards to the nodes, most of the nodes were things we've seen previously. So I did do a video on this third one. They've reduced the attack ratings to somewhat manageable amounts. However, you still have to be very careful. One fight, I think I took like a 3-hit combo, and I was down um, like 50% of my health. So you do have to play, on point. The new node that I kind of took was this thermostat, where you really have to balance how much you're parrying and how much you're attacking. So once you get to a certain amount, if you get 20 thermostat charges, you start to incinerate. If you reach to 0, you take cold snap damage. Um, when you get over, then you have some throwbacks with the um, the mixed champion, Carnage, Angela, and Ice Phoenix. You definitely want somebody that is going to be cold snap immune, dealing with this Ice Phoenix. Big attack value, big health value. So um, outside of that, the fight wasn't terrible. Gwen Perian, lots of energy, lots of health gain. I should say power gain. You do want to be very careful. Um, After she also get prowess buffs, and her special attacks become unblockable. But other than that, it's not it's not a terrible fight. I do like the fact that it did not activate the special 3 for this fight, um, because honestly, the power is gaining so fast. You can't use champs that do energy damage, and so it's going to take out like some folks like Doctor Doom out of the question. Um, but other than that, the third quest really wasn't too bad. Once again, my biggest complaint though is you have these 9 paths. 9 paths, still sizable attack values, and you're in no rush whatsoever to complete, um, you know, quests like this. I would do want to give one big shout out to a fellow YouTuber, just an overall great guy. Um, he did these amazing maps. Um, Rob VonShoe. His YouTube information is right there. You definitely want to go check him out. He created these maps for the entire community, so you can kind of see the paths, the nodes, and so forth. Like I said, um, hopefully they will make changes where they reduce the number of paths. Um, Happy to see that they did start to reduce the attack values. Um, and um, you know, start thinking about some of the here. Hopefully, they'll go a little bit further with regards to some of the heroes they have with certain combinations of nodes. Like I said, the worst one was that shift in immunities with the bleed. The acid wash, not as bad, but definitely when it comes to that bleed, it was just horrible. But like I said, just to display the maps that he created here, just like I said, he's a fantastic guy, and helping out the community and so forth, sharing information. Always has some great content on his channel. Definitely go check him out. But like I said, that's my thoughts on Act Act 7. Um, it's just oh, the nine paths already one just really throws you off. Some of the node combinations are absolutely horrible. I'm happy to see that they did start making changes to the attack value, because you do have to play perfect or you're going to be um, really going to the unit bank. But that's, like I said, my initial thoughts. Surmised in one video. Definitely check out my channel, and you will see me playing through the lanes, especially 7.11, the way it initially was. Um, like as always, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification for upcoming content. And go check out my man, um, Rob VonShoe. And there we go. So you can see his information right there. His YouTube channel. Go check him out. I said, tell him thank you for all of his help with the community, and make sure you give him a like and subscribe on his videos also. Thanks as always. Have a blessed day. Um, and definitely, like I said, hopefully they will, um, really start to make some adjustments and start to work better with the community with regards to some of these contents and how and the development overall, so the game continues to move forward. Thanks as always. Have a blessed day.